Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Daniel Lees podcast. If this is your first episode, make sure whatever channel you listen on, go and hit the subscribe, follow button. And if you love the episode, make sure you drop us a comment. Recently, the podcast has absolutely taken off with one of my latest snippets getting over 3 million views, which is wild because I could never have dreamt that 4 years ago when I started this podcast. But today, I'm joined by somebody who believed in the podcast and opened up to us, and for a very, very long time was the most ever streamed episode up until lately. But she's back and she's one of my favorite guests. She's an incredible human, but unfortunately she made some decisions that nearly ended her life. And today we're going to talk about that and also spread a bit of awareness on the subject matter to hopefully help somebody think a little bit more about these decisions in the future, because firsthand she suffered the effects of making this decision. I'm not going to tell you what it is just yet, because you're going to have to listen to the episode. But please do join me in welcoming this week's guest to the episode, Kelly Marie Hodgkin.
Hello.
How are we?
I'm fabulous.
Yeah. Difficult year this year, right?
Difficult beginning to the year,
Yeah.
January was a bit of a write-off for me.
Yeah. But before we get started, because obviously some of the people that are new listeners and stuff may not know who you are unless they've gone all the way back to way back when. But brief intro, who are you?
I am Kelly Marie Hodgkin. I have 3 boys. I've been in Dubai now for nearly 16 years. I have a gym clothing brand, a modelling and events company. I invest in other female-run brands that I believe in, and I have a women empowerment company, and I do business mentoring.
Nice. There's been a lot that's happened. I think the last time we did an episode was probably around 2-3 years ago, right?
I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And
It's Tommy,
2.
right?
Yeah,
pregnant with Tommy. And now he's 2 years old.
He's 2, yeah.
Wow, because it was just before Christmas. I remember you had like the biggest Christmas tree I'd ever seen. Life's taken off for you since we spoke, because when we first actually spoke, it was kind of like at the beginning of you becoming a brand, right?
Yeah, I changed it up a bit, and instead of focusing on promoting the different brands, I created myself as the brand, because that seemed to be working for me in the past. So I rebranded, and it's probably the best decision I ever made.
Yeah. And what was the actual reason for like wanting to rebrand and be Kelly Marie Hodgkin as a brand?
I think just with starting the business mentor stuff and doing all the women empowerment things, and really like thinking of a company name, like at the end of the day, it's me. It's only me. There's no business partners. It's just me that's doing it. So, I mean, who else better to put as the brand but myself?
Yeah. And the thing is as well, brands now, they're all based behind the individual, right? I mean, and especially from the first episode we did together and the story that you've got, a lot of people are so inspired by where you've come from to where you are today. So be able to flip that into kind of like a brand concept.
Yeah.
And even, and since that episode, obviously we became friends, and, you know, like one thing I've noticed about you is you just do so much for everyone. I don't know anyone that does as much as you. Like, you know, if there's actually, you know, whenever I've asked you something, it's like, yeah, no worries, done. Do you know what I mean? So what is it within you that wants that? Why do you want to help people so much?
I don't know. I think I've always been that way. I just think if you can help someone, then why not? If it's not, if it doesn't affect you in any way, but to help someone and you can, then why not spread some love?
Yeah. And if we talk about the empowerment brand, like when did that kind of idea come around?
I think it was a few years ago. I had so many women ask me for some time, for a coffee, for lunch, to pick my brains and to speak to them about my experiences of starting businesses and running businesses, and especially in Dubai. And I just thought, why not bring all these women together to form more of a network and be able to help them all as a group. And then it just kind of started from there. I think my first event was like 4 women.
Yeah. And how big is the community now?
I mean, the last event we had 140 guests there, men and women, which was amazing, because I really want to encourage men to come along, because I think that they also need the help, but they, you know, it's their egos sometimes get in the way.
Yeah.
So it went from 4 women to a lot.
That's incredible. And have you had like any success stories of like
So many
people in the group?
Yeah, so many. Like to watch them grow and that have come to me with an idea, and now they've got fully fledged business. Even just today, one of my one of my clients, she launched her company and she put her first ever post up, and it was just, I know how nervous she was, and it's amazing.
Yeah. What brand is that? Let's give it a shout out.
Nikki, so it's NMH is her brand name.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
that the lady that you shared it today? The blonde haired lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, she was really sweet, bless her. Yeah, I met her at the event. And the reason why I'm talking about this event is because I also spoke at the event as well.
You did. You opened up and inspired a lot of people.
Yeah, basically I was a full man, a fully grown man who cried twice on stage. But yeah, it was an incredible experience for me because it was the first time I truly opened up about things that happened, and people couldn't believe when I spoke to them that like the only people that ever knew about that before that day was my mum, my dad, my brother and sister.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, I never knew
It was so brave of you.
I never knew how honestly, it was weird, Kelly. I haven't cried. Sometimes I cry when I speak to my therapist because we talk about some deep stuff, but like, honestly, I find it so hard to cry. But then I was just like, it was coming out. I was like, ugh.
But how empowered did you feel after?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And it was great because the thing is, you know, we spoke about that on the stage when we talked about imposter syndrome, and I do suffer from that a lot. But then, you know, I was engaging so much in people asking questions about their business and how they can improve it. And I was like, wow, I actually do know quite a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I underestimate myself sometimes.
100%, yeah.
But no, that's incredible. That's incredible. And again, it's back to the ethos of helping people. But in terms of the other brands, so the gym clothing brand, like the events brand, like which one's your favorite, let's say?
I don't really have a favorite, to be honest. And I've always said that I wouldn't get involved in a brand or a business that I wasn't passionate about and I didn't enjoy working on. So I'm not ever a silent partner, like I have to get involved. Someone asked me to invest in their brand the other day, but it's not something that I really understand or I would be passionate enough about to get involved. So I don't have a favorite. They're all fabulous.
And do you have any more plans for like the future for other brands?
For myself?
Yeah.
I mean, 100%, I get offers all the time. It depends, you know, what comes along and what's the right fit for me.
Nice. So we're here to talk about a particular subject, and that's obviously to create awareness. But obviously this links into what we spoke about at the beginning. Back in January, a period of time in your life where something really bad happened. So what actually happened?
It's like, it is really quite stressful to talk about because it was such a flippant decision that I made, and it could have left my children without a mother and my husband without a wife. And it isn't something that we as women even think about when we're going for something like this. And to take you back to the beginning, it was a free PR. I went to a reviewer clinic that had just opened, and a PR firm had said, can you go down, do some stories? You can have anything that's on the treatment list. So I actually went in for a facial and then got chatting to the famous surgeon that had flown in from the States. And he was talking about the body filler that they were using. And I'd had my last child about 5 months prior, so my bum wasn't as peachy as I'd hoped, and it was just a bit flat at the top. And he was just like, "Oh, we could just put some body filler in, and basically it would just give you that peachy like shape and the peachy look." And you know, it was a freebie, and I was just like, I didn't do any research on the product. It wasn't something that I was like, I really need to do this, but it was offered to me on a plate for free, and I did it.
Yeah. And when was that? Like, at what point was that? Because obviously January is where you became really ill.
Yeah. So this was I think it was in September 2021.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So September 2021, I had it. Around May the following year, I think once it had kind of settled down into my body, and my body then started to reject it. Now, the product that I had, It's in the market. It's, you know, I'm not saying it's the product.
Yeah.
But the surgeon who injected it into me, he didn't ask me any questions. He didn't ask me to sign anything. When you get anything in Dubai or anywhere in the world, you have to fill out a questionnaire, like anything, even if you're getting your eyebrows done or your eyelashes or anything. He didn't ask me any questions. He didn't get me to sign anything. He didn't tell me that there was any aftercare. He told me I could sit straight on after having it and drive home and go to the gym, go in the sun, go swimming. Like, there was no aftercare. There was no follow-up. There was no pre-care. There was nothing. So I had it done then. When it had settled into my body had rejected it. And it was really hot to touch after I worked out. And it was really hard and I couldn't sit on it. It's really uncomfortable and I could tell that it just wasn't right. So I actually went to a good friend and my surgeon here in Dubai and kind of admitted what I'd done. And he was furious and said it was one of the most dangerous things that women are doing at the moment, because there's not enough research and there's not enough, people don't know enough about the products.
Yeah.
He did say we had to remove it immediately before anything, you know, even more serious happened. So I had it removed. I think that was maybe in the August I had it removed. And then everything was fine for a while until it wasn't. And then that's when I started to get sick all the time. My immune system was shot to pieces. It was trying to fight something constantly. And then around December, I was in bed Christmas Day. Early January came and things just weren't looking right. I'd had an MRI scan prior to this because I had lumps.
Yeah, I was going to say, what were you suffering with?
Yeah, I had like lumps in my thighs. And obviously I had the product at the top of my glutes, like right at the top. So these lumps in my thighs, they weren't hurting, they weren't painful, but you could really feel them and you could see them. And my skin there looked like it was really bruised, like it was black. So I went to my surgeon and I had an MRI scan. Anyway, it turns out they were cysts in my legs. January, I think it was the 3rd, I went to see my surgeon and he was just devastated. He said that I looked really sick. I was frail. I'd lost so much weight. And he said, we need to remove these cysts immediately. And he did a blood test and I had the worst blood infection that he'd ever seen. So we booked me in for immediate surgery the next day. Went in, he said it'll be 45-minute surgery. We'll cut each side of your legs to remove these cysts and then hopefully you should be fine. And then it was when he opened me up, he'd realised that the product that I'd had previously injected into my glutes had migrated the entire way down my body, all the way down my legs. And those cysts that you could feel and touch were not the only ones that were inside my body. There was loads. And it took him 7.5 hours to remove everything until he was 100% happy that he'd removed all of the product. There's videos of him squeezing the product out of my muscles. It was injected so far deep where it should have been just superficial. It'd been injected so far deep into my muscles that it was just slowly killing me. And he said afterwards that if I had waited 1 more week to see him or to act, or that I hadn't listened to my body, I wouldn't be here today.
Wow. And like, I mean, so if we go all the way back to kind of like the beginning then, so when you had the surgery, like, did you feel afterwards like, okay, maybe I might, like, any sort of regret? Maybe
you mean the injections?
Yeah, like when you had the initial injections, when you left, did you kind of think afterwards, like, maybe you shouldn't have done that?
No. I thought these are great.
Really?
It took 5 minutes and I've got a peachy bum.
Did it actually give you like a peachy bum straight away?
Yeah, it was immediate. Apparently my husband didn't like it, but he never told me at the time. But I'd had like a nice shape.
Wow. And I mean, you're somebody that's always been into fitness. Did you not just think about just doing a few extra leg days now and again?
No, babe, it doesn't work like that. You're either gifted in that department or you're not. And I never have been. Yeah. And that's always been fine for me. Like it never really bothered me. it was just one of them things. Genetically, I don't have a peachy bum. It's just, it is what it is.
And I suppose, obviously, I mean, when you go back to obviously the birth of your third child, Tommy, obviously having 3 kids is like, I mean, you look incredible for having 3 children. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, when you had your third child, did you kind of like have some sort of discomfort when you looked in the mirror then and was kind of a bit like, oh, you know, I really want to change? Is that what it was? Or
absolutely not. And that's the sad thing about it. Like, I went into this clinic for a facial, and I just feel like these things are so easily available for women, and they're handed out and they're offered to us like we need them, and we really do not need them. And like you were saying before, like, why do you do these things? What is the reason behind it? But women, like, unfortunately, we don't do it for anybody else but ourselves. We do it for confidence and to make ourselves feel better.
Yeah.
And that was, there was no other reason. I didn't have it on my to-do list, like, get a bigger bum. And it was just so easily available. And if you research this procedure, the side effects and the risks that comes up is death.
Yeah.
Like, it's plain and it's clear. And
I was actually looking into body fillers when we
for
first...
yourself?
No, like actually statistics. And the way that body filler... They say, I mean, it's difficult to really understand who's right and who's wrong, but I was reading a lot from the health institutions that talk about it. And it's funny because you research articles online, and obviously the businesses that sell it talk about how safe it is. But obviously when you read the actual facts from the health institutions, they do talk about the dangers of it. And obviously, first of all, what the ingredient actually is. You know, when you think about it out loud, you're injecting a foreign body into your body inside. So naturally, your body is always going to fight against it one way or another.
Yeah.
And I was actually, so that one of the stats was that 1 in 50,000 people die from plastic surgery. And that's body fillers, breast implants, everything related to that. But then also there was another statistic. This was a funny one that I actually laughed at as well, is 94% of plastics, and I know we're talking about plastic surgery as a general whole, 94% of the women in America that have plastic surgery are white women.
To look like...
How weird is that? I couldn't believe when I read that.
Why would that be weird to you?
Because when you think about it, it's like, it's a certain type of look, right? It's like a white woman. Like you don't tend to find it with... These are the stats. It was just white women, 94% white women. I was like, wow.
But I think maybe because, you know, like, white women are generally not as curvy as, say, like... Is that
the look? Is that the look? I mean, because like you say, it's like South American women and stuff like that, and
everyone wants
African
to look like
women.
them.
They got great big bums, big boobs and stuff. But is that? I mean, is that the look that is being desired? Do you think, or? I
honestly, the world is so fucking toxic these days. Like, everyone wants to look like a Kardashian or, you know, everyone wants something that they haven't got. But the trends that always go up and down, and then people take their implants out, and it's just the society these days of what you're supposed to look like.
Yeah. And that's the problem, isn't it? It's like with social media now and what you actually see. And it's like, even when you go into the dating world, which is obviously not relevant to kind of what we're talking about now, but how many times, well, you haven't because you're married, but when I was in the dating world, like, you would go turn up on a date with a girl that you thought looked in one way, and then she looks the opposite way. And it's like, why change the, like, what
confidence. It all boils down to confidence and what they feel like society feels like what they should look like.
Yeah. And that's exactly why when we said we'd speak about this, one of the things that I wanted to really get into was just why. And I know you can't speak on behalf of women, but obviously since the incident, a lot of women have reached out to you. But before we get into kind of the why part, when you had the surgery then, so the surgery happened all in one day, or you said there was 2 surgeries and then you had to,
so I
one
had
surgery
one
and you had
to have it removed, and then the second surgery was because it had migrated. But obviously the removal, it was just sucked out, so we couldn't obviously see what was going on and what had actually happened. So obviously my surgeon was unaware of that. And then the second surgery was to remove the cysts, but obviously he saw what a mess it actually was.
Yeah, and you'd obviously shared some images of where the doctor had kind of opened you up, because you was on your front, right? Because he'd cut you open from the buttocks. Had he cut you open anywhere else, or only from?
No, just there.
So from the glutes.
Yeah.
And how has the recovery been from the backside of that? Well, what a coincidence I said that. But like the after effects of having that procedure, how long did it take you to recover? Because I assume he's probably cut into the muscle and everything.
Oh yeah, I mean, he cut so deep and he dug around so much just to make sure that I was never back there and nothing else had gone wrong. Like, I think that was one of my main concerns coming out and realizing what had happened. I was so worried that, did he get everything? You know, every time I kind of feel a bit sniffly, I'm like, is there some still in me? Is it like, am I still dying? Like, it's just messes with your head. But it was 7.5 hours. He did surgery the second time to ensure that everything was out, but he cut through so much. So he did say you would need 6 to 8 weeks after of not doing much. But then after every week I had to go for blood tests to make sure that all my organs were working okay, that the blood infection was reducing. And then I think it was after like 4 to 6 weeks, he said that it actually comes up when you do a blood test that the muscles are completely inactive. So I had to go back to the gym slowly to start rebuilding the muscles, because that can be quite dangerous as well.
Yeah. And back to what I was going to say is one of the things that I actually read was the most dangerous part of body fillers is if it actually gets into the bloodstream, because then it obviously spreads across. And some of the side effects are death, strokes, and it can actually make you blind.
Thank you.
They didn't tell you any of this?
Nothing. But then who's to blame? I didn't research it.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me anything. The one thing that did get me though is when you go for anything like this, you do obviously fill out a form and sign everything and you read all the bits. And it does say that if you have an autoimmune disease, then you're not eligible for any kind of body filler. So an autoimmune disease, there's many different ones, but one of them is psoriasis, which attacks your body from within, which is something that I suffer from. So I was never eligible for it anyway. But he wouldn't have known that because he didn't ask me the right questions.
Yeah. So the feeling, you wake up, how did you feel when you'd woken up?
I mean, obviously I woke up and I just assumed that, you know, the cysts were removed and job done and I was fine. It was then when I'd spoken, the surgeon came in and spoke to me and told me exactly what had happened. And his wife actually said that he got home after my surgery and just broke down into tears and he just couldn't believe that someone had done that to me. Someone that, because I'm his friend, he was just so upset about the whole thing. Then realising the severity of what had happened and how close I was to actually dying and putting myself in that risk. And that was probably the hardest thing to overcome, more so than the physical element of it.
And how did he kind of deliver that message and say, like, basically, you nearly died? Did he kind of like just straight up drop it on you, or?
Oh, he came in and he explained what actually happened and he shared the videos and the images from the surgery. And his wife was there holding my hand and just explaining everything. And they were just trying to focus on the main thing, that you're fine now, that you're alive and you're okay. But it was just the reality of how serious it had been. It was terrifying.
And then, you know, not only have you got to recover from the actual operation, I assume there's some sort of mental side of how it affects you as well.
I think that's probably the hardest part. Like, I was never concerned about the physical part because I know how strong and amazing my body is after having 3 kids. And I was 6 to 8 weeks after I was back skiing, horse riding, and my surgeon was laughing at me, but it wasn't going to stop me. But I think the mental side of it, I think even still now it was really hard to overcome. And I really had to kind of deal with that properly so I didn't keep coming back up again.
What sort of emotions were you feeling?
Just regret, anger towards myself for not have, you know, just to been that flippant about something that could have killed you. Obviously, as women, we don't go into these things thinking, right, should I get this done because I might actually die? We just don't, and we should. And we should be asking ourselves, is it even worth it? Is it worth it to go wrong and potentially you lose your life? Is it worth it? No.
And when you saw your children for the first time as well, like, was there a lot of emotion there? Because when you think about the fact that potentially you could have lost them, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, there was. It was my middle child, Teddy, was actually in the room when the surgeon came round, and I tried not to cry and everything, but it was really hard in front of him. But yeah, like, it's just that's not worth thinking about.
And how long was it for you to like say, the mental side of things? Like, what sort of things, what did you do to kind of like get over it? Because I suppose the reason why I'm asking these questions is because a lot of people have reached out recently on podcasts and been like, oh my God, this happened to me. So like, if somebody's going through the same thing right now, like, what steps did you put in place to actually get over the mental side of what happened?
I just didn't want it to keep coming back up, because every time I thought about it or spoke about it, I just got so upset about it. So I just knew that I had to deal with it. So I spoke to a few people. I had some like trauma healing, some like coaching, and there's a couple of women that I can recommend to any of your listeners if they need, just to just accept what happened, deal with it and forgive yourself, and then move on.
Yeah. Did you face a lot of hate for yourself then?
I think hate's just a really strong word. It wasn't hate. It was just a little, it was anger, and it was regret, and it was frustration. I think that for all women do things like this. But like you said earlier, like why are we doing it? Who are we doing it for?
Yeah. And then after the operation, and obviously, when did you decide to talk about it publicly?
I mean, I really wanted to. I mean, I was very open about what had happened to me, because even though I was embarrassed that I'd done something so flippantly and it could have cost me my life, I was embarrassed, but I wanted to share to other women that, my story and the risks that are involved in this. And I had honestly, thousands of women message me that had the products, other products, had the same procedure, had something else, people that they knew had lost their lives through it. And I was shocked that so many people and so many bad things are happening, and no one's actually ever talked about it.
Yeah.
So many people have died from it, and so many people have had problems and nearly lost their life. And the amount of people that have been offered it or were going to get it, and, hopefully after seeing what had happened to me, it made them rethink it, that they don't actually need it.
Yeah. And with these types of messages, like when you say that, how many messages would you say you got roughly? Hundreds, thousands?
Thousands, maybe like 2,500, 3,000.
What? All in the UAE or outside?
No, all over the world.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And what, like, I suppose, like, in terms of the amount of messages and stuff, but what was the kind of worst story you'd say you'd heard from somebody that had been through a similar thing?
There was a lady, and she sent me some pictures and stuff, and I think she'd gone to Turkey or somewhere to get her done. And she had it done, and they kind of patched her up, and she was recovering in the hotel room, but she was bleeding. And I think her friend came and found her and took her to the hospital. And then there was another one whose friend went across seas, and she had been a bigger girl, and she was so excited to have some work done, and unfortunately she lost her life. There was another lady that...
What type of work was it though? That was
liposuction and implants. Another lady apparently lives where I live. Apparently she'd had something similar, and she lost her life and left her children behind.
In Dubai or England?
Yeah, Dubai.
In Dubai, wow. And that in itself is like a lot to deal with.
It's awful.
So going back to the subject matter then, so why is it, do you think, that now it's such a popular thing? Because again, another stat that I found from Cleveland Clinic, in the US alone, in Cleveland Clinic, in 2018 they did 2.1 million lip filler operations or procedures in 2018
to fill the lips. Yeah.
I just found it like crazy. I was like, what, like, and even in the UAE, like the demand for plastic surgery as a whole, I suppose we can put body fillers in there, doubled. So it's like, I suppose the underlying issue is like, why is this happening on such a frequent basis?
I honestly feel like it's just so available, and the price, it's so accessible because the price isn't what it used to be. Like it isn't that expensive anymore. And, you know, you can get Groupon offers to get stuff done, and you can, like, honestly, it's so available. And every other advertisement on Instagram, Facebook is for these procedures, mummy makeovers, this and that. Like, you've just had a child. You shouldn't be thinking about having to make over your body to, you know, to fit into society. Like, you should be enjoying motherhood, but it's literally thrown in our faces.
Yeah. I mean, even now, do you still get like approached by clinics saying like, come do some work? And
all the time. And
that's I mean, I remember one of my ex-girlfriends, I make it sound like there's loads. It was only one that said this, but my ex-girlfriend, she was like, you should go and do some Botox because you're getting wrinkles in your forehead, for anyone looking at the camera right now. And it was just because of my expressions, they move up and down and stuff. Which has caused some deep-rooted lines, which are not too bad, to be honest. It's just a part of aging and whatever. But I remember we went to a house in Sharjah, and I'm sitting in this woman's living room. She's married to a local guy. I think she's Ukrainian. And I just go upstairs. She just injects the Botox, and then I'm sitting downstairs for like probably a couple of hours just waiting for them to finish. But then I was just like, we're in somebody's house. Don't know who this person is. And they may be qualified. I mean, I don't know if they're not, but it just, the whole process of it, it's like, even Botox is freezing muscles, right? But it's like, wow, like we're going to somebody's house to carry out a procedure, and I hear it so much. It's like, you hear about it all the time. And even, you know, like friends I know that have gone, oh yeah, like, I'm going to go do some lip filler in this clinic or that clinic, or even like hairdressers, I think do it now as well.
Yeah. And
I suppose it gets to the point where do we draw a line and say like, how can we actually stop this from happening?
Do you know, one of the most asked questions when this happened was, oh my God, where did you go? Was it really cheap? Like, and I think that's a misconception. Like, we can't stop this happening, because even if you go to the most expensive, most well-known clinic, it can still happen. It's just negligence. So one of the everyone was saying, did you get it really cheap? Did you go somewhere really dodgy? Or no, I went to a really reputable, expensive clinic.
Yeah. And with the clinic, how did they react when they found out about the news?
I mean, not the way I expected, if I'm honest. I can't say too much because possible legal issues going on, but they didn't follow up. They didn't show any kindness or care at all.
Yeah.
My surgeon sent them the full file with full facts, everything, and they didn't even respond.
Wow.
And I've not had one message since January or email or anything, just asking me if I'm okay or how I am, or nothing.
How does that make you feel?
Angry. Like? So fucking angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, because I suppose if you've not signed anything as well, right? Is there, like, can you really go after them?
I mean, it's still a clinic. It's still a surgeon. You know, he's got a license from the US. We'll see.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Yeah. And what's your kind of like viewpoint now on anything to do with injections into the body?
I would never have body filler ever again.
Yeah.
In my body.
Yeah. And like if you're listening, if somebody's listening to this thinking like, what should we do? Like, I'm thinking about doing this or that. What advice would you give them?
I would honestly, it isn't about researching the clinic. It's not about researching the surgeon. It's not about any of that. It's ask yourself, do you really need it? And if you do really need it, I don't know, do your research. Just research every single thing that you can, and weigh up the side effects and the risks.
Yeah. And are you actually going to do more talks about it? Have you done anything like this? Because I know that obviously when we spoke about it a long time ago, it kind of went a bit quiet, and then now you've decided to come out and speak. Is this the first time you've spoken about it?
Yeah.
And when you speak about it, are you going to go off and do more talks and talk more about it and spread more awareness?
I mean, if I can help people, then 100%. If other people want me to talk about it, and if I can help people by talking about it, then 100%.
Yeah. And it was, do you know what, it's funny you say that, because I don't know why I didn't talk about this before, but so I have a really bad issue with my nose being blocked all the time, especially when there's AC on and stuff. And what happened is I went to the ENT doctor, but just so happens he's a specialist in surgeries and stuff. And he was actually saying to me, I was talking to him about this, and he was talking about, there's a client that he's got that's got something like 3.3 million followers. And she comes and sees him regularly and says, can you do this for me? And can you do that for me? And there's some procedures that he's helped her with, but there's times where he's like, I can't just keep doing this for you. Why are you trying, what is the deeper root of wanting to change? And she was explained a situation that happened with her mother when she was younger, and that whenever she's had a surgery, her mum reach out and asks if she's okay. And the way that she gets love from the mother is by having surgery so that her mum calls her.
Oh.
And it's and bearing in mind, this is somebody that's got 3.3 million followers online, and it, like you say, you now look at that and you go, these influencers, are they really in a great place? Are they really?
Yeah. And you hear so much about this, and so it's just happening so more often that, these people, whether they're celebrities or they're influencers or famous people, and they're so lonely and they're so sad. Doesn't matter how many followers you have.
If anyone's thinking about getting any surgeries done, where can they find you to kind of reach out?
Kelly Marie Hodgkin on Instagram, Kelly Marie Hodgkin on Facebook.
Yeah.
At Kelly Marie Hodgkin on TikTok.
Yeah.
Or Kelly at kmhevents.com.
So we spoke very briefly about the empowerment event at the beginning. But how many empowerment events have you actually done now?
The smaller ones, which I keep really intimate and exclusive at my house, we've had probably around 15. And then the bigger ones that we've done, we've actually only ever done 2 of the size of the last one that you spoke at. My initial aim was to do 1 empowerment event a month, and then 1 big one every 3 to 4 months.
Yeah. And when do you reckon will be the next kind of event where people can get involved in again?
I think we'll probably aim for October.
Yeah. And going to be a big one or a small one?
It will be a big one.
Yeah. And when you came up with a concept, what was was it always to be about business and getting businesses together, or was it just generally just to empower people?
No, I think it's always just about empowering and motivating, and I used to go to some events when I worked for Optical Express, and I used to always remember that coming away feeling so inspired and motivated, and and I just really wanted to kind of share some of that. And I know that when I started my businesses, the only person I had kind of in my corner was my husband. Not that was a bad thing, but I just feel like there wasn't really anyone that I could kind of reach out to. And most of my clients that I do for the business mentoring are actually not even based in Dubai, because it's just something I don't think that's very available for women or men to, especially entrepreneurs, when it's just you, to have someone to help you and to challenge you and to inspire you. So
yeah. And what do you find, you obviously talk to so many different entrepreneurs and people trying to get advice, what do you see is the most common aspect of people wanting to start businesses? What's the kind of biggest pain point you find?
They're all different really, but I think social media is something that they really struggle with. The content, And I know that there's so many options in Dubai, people that help you with that. But you can do it yourselves, especially when you're starting a business. It isn't something you want to really fork out for straight away. So probably social media, content creation, and then just stripping it back and just getting back to the basics and to really finding out why they want to do this and if it's even feasible.
Yeah, because I think that's again, not even just talking about like what we've spoken about earlier on with the body fillers and stuff. It's almost like we live in a society where things need to happen so quickly.
Yeah.
So people always tend, what I find when I, especially even from speaking at the event, you got some great ideas, but people just don't know why they're doing it. And
you need to have a why. The why is so important.
How can people, I mean, it took me a long time to discover mine, to be honest, but like, how do you help people discover their whys?
Well, it's just about talking to them and finding out the reasons behind why they want to do this and finding out what's really driving them and what they're like, who are they doing it for? Whether it be themselves or their children or, it's a process.
And what's your why?
My why is probably stems from my upbringing, not to make the same mistakes as my birth mother and not to be like that. And now my why is my children. I want them to have a mother that they can be proud of and that they see that I'm, hardworking and I want a better life for myself and for them.
Yeah, because that was one thing I've spoken about with as well is with success, obviously comes money. And would you say you've made it to the point now where you're financially free? If you wanted to stop work tomorrow, you could?
I mean, I don't have to work, but I've worked since I was 16 and it's not, if I had all the money in the world, I would think I would still work.
Yeah, because I was thinking about this the other day as well. And yeah, you kind of like deterioration in life, I suppose, comes from when you just stop doing things and stop having a purpose.
Yeah.
Stop having that why. And it always, and I talk about this a lot, but like for me, and again, I couldn't stop work tomorrow and be okay. Like I still need to work a little bit harder. But I always found money as just like freedom tokens. It doesn't buy you happiness. Yeah. It just gives you freedom to be able to make the choices you want. But that was kind of like what I thought to myself, like what really drives me to actually go on and when I dug deeper, it's more about it is literally just freedom. Yeah. And going back to kind of like you as a child and obviously the problems that you had to face growing up, like now that your children don't have to face that, how do you go around making sure that they understand, apart from seeing you? Because I mean, they're still young, right?
The importance of working hard. And I mean, both having, both parents who are very driven, very ambitious, very hardworking, they're around it all the time. So I kind of feel like it's installed in them anyway. Like they're going to have the same values. They don't. I mean, it's hard in Dubai because kids they have such an amazing life. But I think you just have to be very open with them, very honest and very real with them as well. Like this is hard work and money does not grow on trees. That's exactly what they think.
Because I've been to your house a few times and like, it's an incredible house. Like I could only dream to live in that house one day. But this is the thing, like when your kids get to like 18, 19 and you're like, come on, out you go. And they're kind of like making their life and they have to make a downgrade in their lifestyle. Yeah.
I think with the kids though, it's difficult because they've never known any different.
Yeah.
They've always, they're very lucky and they're blessed, but they've always had this life. So it's just to, make sure that they're just real people and they're genuine and you just have to make sure that their moral compass is on point.
How old are the boys now?
2, 7 and 10. Well, Harry will be 10 tomorrow.
10 tomorrow, wow. So he's a Gemini as well?
Yes.
Is he a bit crazy or?
No, he's very sensitive. He's very much like me. He's very sensitive and he's a good boy.
See, I always used to get that with like being a Gemini, I'm kind of like on the border. So it's like Gemini and Cancer. And everyone used to be like, okay, so you're two-faced, you're a crazy person, you're hot and cold, you're this and that. And I'm like, I'm actually a very deep person.
You're more Cancerian then,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And I met another Gemini the other day, and he's like, I just don't represent that brand.
See, I'm
of,
Libra,
like,
so I'm very balanced.
yeah. And what have you got anything planned for the birthday? You usually go out pretty big, don't you?
Yeah,
so.
we've got a limo picking them up tomorrow at 10 boys in a limo, filled with prime and of like a 1 foot big inch pizza or something, taking them down to Abu Dhabi. We're going to stay at the Warner Brothers Hotel for the weekend.
Oh, wow. And do the parks and everything.
Do some of the parks, yeah.
Nice. And all the family's going down, yeah? Do your kids ever get to experience where you came from in the UK?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, we've taken them back there. They don't love it, but they do. I grew up obviously in Essex, but I lived in Scotland for 8 years. So we take them back to Scotland a lot, and they absolutely love it there.
Yeah. What part of Scotland do you take them to?
Glasgow.
Okay. So it is pretty
Rough.
It's pretty hostile there, isn't it?
No, I've got the fondest memories from there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Kelly, thank you very much.
You are welcome.
For kind of like it's really difficult to talk about this type of subject because
you nearly made me cry a few times.
Yeah, there's also a lot of people out there that again will say different things because they've got a hidden agenda.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't. It's
and it's embarrassing. At the beginning of it, I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing that, but now I just want to help people.
Yeah, exactly. So if anyone else is like kind of listening to this podcast and is thinking about it, I suppose my only suggestion would be think about why. And if you ever want to take expert advice from people that have lived it, breathed it, and had a bad experience, just to understand that it's not all good sometimes, and you just got to think about it and do the due diligence in a world which, to be honest, we live in a world where it is very difficult to actually understand where to go, what to do, who to do it with. Reach out to the ones that have been through it themselves. And you can head over. I'll make sure that I give the handles for Kelly to make sure that you can connect and reach out to her. But again, this is slightly different to the podcast we are used to doing, but it's to create awareness to help other people. And if this is something that we can help with, then hopefully we have saved at least one person. So thank you very much for tuning in to the episode, and we'll see you next time.